Parachute Adams. Step 1.
For this fly, we're going to use a standard number 12 dry fly hook and some black 6/0 tying thread, and coat that shank so you get a secure base to tie onto.
Step 2.
Now for the tail, we're going to use a grizzly neck hackle. You want to pull those fibers down so that so the tips are nice and even. Peel off a good portion of fibers and pinch them together so all the tips are even. And we're going to tie the tips in so that the whole tail is from hook bend to hook eye. Maybe snip those off because they're a little too long. Couple loose loops to get that secured down on the hook shank, and continue wrapping till the hook bend.
Step 3.
Now for the wing in this fly, being parachute style, we're going to use some white calf body hair. You can also use you could use elk or maybe even deer hair. And these fibers are very slippery, and there's lots of small, shorter fibers in there. You want to clean them out so you have the longest fibers left. Don't be shy to clean a lot of them out. I'm going to place them tip first in the hair stacker. They should stack nice and easy.
Notice you always use the tips towards the bottom of the stacker.
Exactly, that's what we're trying to achieve, to get all the tips nice and even. Pull it out and clean it right up again. There's so many small fibers in there, you have to continue doing this a few times. You can see it stacks really nice though.
So you're pretty safe to assume that the workable fibers are always the tip. You never use the blunt ends, or very rarely use the blunt ends.
We're going to tie this wing in so that it's approximately the hook shank length. We're going to tie the wing in before the body because it helps proportion the rest of the fly. It's a lot easier to do now than it is with the body already dubbed on. Tie it in there about a third of the way from the eye of the hook. Pointing backwards, directly on top of the hook. Make sure this initial part is really secure. And now when we're going to trim these off, we'll trim them on an angle, and that way again we'll have a nice even dubbed body. It helps taper the body nicely. That secure base is very important.
Step 4.
Now we're going to post the wing by pulling it directly up from the fly and wrapping some thread wraps right behind the wing. This is posting the wing.
So you're actually pulling back quite hard with the thread to keep it up, are you?
With the wing, you're pulling the thread and pulling the thread into the wing in order to keep it propped up. There you go. We're going to start wrapping the thread around the base of the calf body.
You're like tying it into a tube almost.
Correct. And this is going to give us something to wrap our hackle on.
Step 5.
Doesn't hurt to put a little glue at the base, just on the thread, not into the hair. This will help keep the wing directly up. I prefer to use a Zap-A-Gap, which is, again, a crazy glue. Dries very quickly.
Step 6.
Next, we're going to use a bit of a Blue Dun superfine dry fly dub. You can see it's a really long fiber dubbing.
You don't use much there at all?
No, a very small amount for this. And again, keep the tip of the dubbing noodle nice and tight so that way it'll go on nice and smooth and evenly onto the body of the fly and not bulk up on us.
A lot of people talk about wax thread and waxing for the dubbing. Are you using any of that on this?
We're not using a wax on this dubbing because it dubs on nice and easily. Something like seal fur or Angora would be something you'd want to use wax for. And all thread is waxed.
Step 7.
Now we're going to choose one of each brown and grizzly dry fly quality hackle, again to match a number 12 hook. And peel off at the base there so that the stem and and the softer fibers are removed. The thick stem, I should say. There you go. You can see they're going to match the hook shank, or the hook gap.
Is that generally the rule of thumb, is that the fibers are the length of the hook gap?
This should be a little bit longer.
Is that right? Okay.
We're going to tie these pointing directly out the back of the fly, with the top of the feather facing up. Tie those in there. On the side of the fly. Trim off those butts. Secure. It must be secure, or they'll pull out on you. And we're going to hold them together and wrap them a bit around the base of our wing. Probably no more than 2 or 3 turns, otherwise the fiber or the quill will slide off the wing. Tie those in nice and tight.
So you're lifting the hackle fibers up in order to get underneath them when you tie off those.
Correct, so we don't get too many of them tied down.
Mm-hmm.
Step 8.
And put a little bit of glue, again, some Zap-A-Gap, just a tiny bit, just on the thread, not so much on the hackle or the wing, and this will help the hackles to keep them from sliding up the wing, because the calf body is so slippery, a lot of times the hackles will slide off.
Step 9.
Now we're going to add a little bit more dubbing to the underside of the fly here, in and around and underneath the wing and hackle.
Is it necessary, or is it just cosmetic?
It's not absolutely necessary, but it keeps the body consistent color, because that's what the fish are going to see. And for a picky trout, that's something they're going to look at.
So it could matter.
It could. Dub in a bit of a figure 8 there. Get it right underneath, and the bottom of the fly is covered in dubbing. Going to trim that off. Just this dubbing you can use and trim off because the fibers are so long. A lot of dubbings you wouldn't be able to do this with.
Step 10.
Make sure the head of the fly is cleared of any material and whip finish. And make sure those fibers are out of the way, because we don't want to tie any of them down. That's what's going to keep the fly afloat.
Step 11.
A little more glue?
A little more glue in the eye of the hook there and the thread. There you have it. An excellent mayfly pattern.